Coons.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ranking Member, you've laid out an important argument in your opening statements. The Chairman recited a long list of American inventions and innovations made possible by federally funded science. The Ranking Member detailed the Advanced Light Source in Berkeley, which I've also visited, which has contributed dramatically to our advances. I just want to briefly say at the outset that I'm very disappointed with the Department's FY18 budget request. I understand the importance of making tough budget choices, but I'm struck by the breadth and severity of cuts proposed to basic research. 30 to 70% cuts in R&D, and in particular eliminating ARPA-E, state energy programs, manufacturing USA institutes, energy hubs. This isn't just cutting. This is, in my view, giving up on the clean energy race. This is about jobs. This is about clean energy, which creates millions of jobs across our country, including, as we know, in your home state. If we don't support these jobs in this country, we are simply allowing them to go to our competitors around the world, principally China. I look forward to your presentation and the chance to ask questions later. Thank you for the chance to make a brief opening statement.
Thank you, Senator Coons.
Thank you, Chairman Alexander, Ranking Member Feinstein. Thank you, Secretary Perry. I reviewed your testimony in written form and appreciate the chance to question you today.
Yes, sir.
You've had a long hearing.
$4 billion.
And I appreciate the chance to raise my concerns. Over the last decade, the United States has become dramatically more energy secure and grown the economy and expanded jobs and reduced greenhouse gases all at the same time, broadly speaking. And we've shown that we can be more environmentally responsible and support new jobs. And that's in no small part because of the Department of Energy's groundbreaking work that has supported a wide range of new energy technologies. That's why I think we need to stay committed to a previous goal of doubling investments in energy research. This would dramatically accelerate American innovation, confront challenges like climate change, increase jobs, and ensure our economic competitiveness, national security, and our environmental vitality. This budget, at least as presented, is the antithesis of that commitment. The forward-leaning research model that the United States has championed for decades would be reversed, and there could be, as you've discussed at length with other members, significant cuts and job losses at our national labs, research university startups, and more. So let's be honest, we need to address our infrastructure, grid reliability, climate change, and other challenges, and the Department of Energy has a critical role to play. Every energy resource and technology today has been nurtured, supported, and advanced in some small part or some significant part by federal research, as Chairman Alexander laid out at the beginning of this hearing, from hydraulic fracturing to solar power. And we need to continue to invest in the partnership between DOE and the private sector. Mr. Secretary, this budget approach, if fully adopted, sends a clear message to China and the rest of the world that they will become the world's economic engine for clean energy and the U.S. will become the caboose. And it's my hope that we can work together in a bipartisan way to blunt some of the impact of this proposed budget. Let me talk about advanced manufacturing. I was in manufacturing in the private sector for 8 years. I have some real concerns about the cuts to the Advanced Manufacturing Office in this budget, and I'm not the only one raising this concern. All 7 former assistant secretaries for EERE, from George H.W. Bush through President Obama, sent a letter raising concerns about the 70% cut to this office. It seems to me inconsistent with President Trump's agenda of supporting manufacturing. It's surprising there's a $146 million cut to the Advanced Manufacturing Office, including the $70 million to fund the Manufacturing USA Institutes. The strategy that produced the Manufacturing USA Institutes was led by the CEO of Dow, was led by a private sector-initiated outside effort. And I am concerned about this message to industry and to manufacturing. How do you justify this kind of a cut, this depth and breadth of a cut, in a manufacturing-focused investment sector where it was broadly supported by industry partners from its outset and is critical to our long-term competitiveness? Help me understand your reasoning.
Senator, I think the challenge that we always have when we have restrictions in our budgets is how we're going to manage the resources that we have. And again, I'm not asking you to take a complete pig in a poke here. I've got a history and a record of being able to manage some pretty big entities during some period of time that were challenges. I mean, billions of dollars of shortfall in my home state back in the early 2000s. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's going to be fun, it's going to be easy, but I'm going to tell you that if you've got to have somebody managing the DOE at a time when there may be some challenges from a financial standpoint, I may be a pretty good person to have at the helm of that.
I appreciate that response, Mr. Secretary. My question really wasn't about managing. It was more about priorities.
Yes, sir.
And the fact that the President ran on supporting manufacturing. This is part of a thoroughly thought out, well-developed strategy for supporting manufacturing, one that's been supported in the Senate on a bipartisan basis. So my hope is that the critical investments DOE is making in manufacturing will get a reconsideration. Let me move to the quadrennial energy review, if I might. It could be a valuable policy review process. The Defense Department follows the same approach. I've worked with Chairman Alexander on legislation that would require the federal government to undertake a periodic and analytically driven review process of energy policy. Can you assure me you'll continue to carry out with public input the quadrennial energy review that's required to be done once every 4 years?
Senator, I'm going to follow the law. If that is statutorily in the law, you better believe it, we're going to be doing it. So if it's statutorily required, I'll be addressing it.
Well, I certainly hope you'll consider it as a potentially helpful tool.
Yes, sir.
In achieving the overall mission of the department. Let me just last say that in an interview recently, you denied the idea that carbon dioxide is a main driver for climate change, that human-generated carbon dioxide is the main driver for climate change. But what more do you need to hear from scientists or military leaders, business leaders, anyone, to be convinced that man-made greenhouse gas emissions pose a serious threat to our economy and our future?
Senator Coons, I think it's a great opportunity for this country to have a conversation about the climate and get the politics out of it and bring the scientists together. As a matter of fact, the Undersecretary for President Obama, the Undersecretary of Energy for President Obama, Stephen Coons, has said, he's a theoretical physicist and was over at the department and knows this issue rather well. And he says it's probably time for us to have a conversation with all the politics out of the room and to let the scientists set. And so he was actually offering up the idea of having a red team come in and have this conversation. And I would dearly love to be in the room when they're having that, not to be one of the experts, but to really listen and have that opportunity to have the conversation. Because my perspective is that it's not settled science, and the idea that if you don't believe it's settled science, you're somehow another a Luddite is just a little bit out of the realm of. I don't mind being skeptic about things. But I think we ought to be honest about it, that there are some pretty substantial, including, President Obama's own Undersecretary at DOE, that says this science is not settled. And so, Senator, I hope we can agree that maybe it's time for us to have a red team approach to this, set them in the room, and let's listen to what they come up with.
Okay, we're way over time.
I just want to say thank you for that response and the openness, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the chance to question.
Thank you, Senator.